Hello folks, my name is Mark, this is Why I Hate the World, how you guys doing? So we just got finished with the longest government shutdown in history, 35 days, and it looks like Trump caved. Trump capitulated. He lost pretty hard. He basically got no wall funding. And, quite frankly, he deserves it. So let's see, so basically, if you guys remember, right, back 35 days ago, we had a bill in front of Trump's desk to, keep the government going, right? And it was a bill that had already passed the Senate and already passed the House. And Trump already said he would sign it, right? And then Ann Coulter and Rush Limbaugh decided to be mean to Trump and to start calling him names. And his precious little ego got bruised. And then he decided to throw this fit and shut down the government. And because Donald Trump threw a fit, 800,000 people didn't get paid for 35 days. Okay, that's what all those people, 400,000 of those people were forced to work anyway. They were part of the essential operations of the government, people like the Coast Guard, the TSA, right, law enforcement, FBI, those kinds of things. Those people had to work anyway, and they weren't being paid for it, right? The other people were just furloughed. That's it. You're gone. You're off for 35 days. You got no money, and what's going to happen when your power bills due, when your rent's due? What are you going to do? Right. I mean, there was a news story about how FBI agents and TSA people were working and then working at another job, bussing tables or driving an Uber or something, just so that they can have money to keep their fucking keep from getting evicted and stuff. And because of this, they were putting in 17-hour days, right? And that kind of thing. And the same thing, and basically it's funny because this whole thing ended when the air traffic controllers threatened to go on strike, because that's what they were doing. They were working two jobs, right? Without getting, can you imagine that shit? People in the TSA just started quitting. Right, they're calling out sick, they're quitting because they're not getting paid for it. Would you work without getting paid? Hell no, I wouldn't. Right, and this is what happened because Donald Trump's precious little ego got bruised because he couldn't handle being called names by Ann fucking Coulter. That's the first thing, right? Second thing is that Mitch McConnell kept blocking bills to reopen the government. So at least 4 bills that I know of, there may have been more, where, basically it passes the House and it's to reopen the government, and Mitch McConnell wouldn't bring it to a vote in the Senate, especially towards the end, because he knew that there was no support for the shutdown from the Republicans and that they would have enough votes to override a presidential veto. And he did it because he didn't want to make Trump look any worse than he already does. And also because Mitch McConnell is up for election next year, and he wants to kind of get in good with Trump's base and all that shit. So he's trying to protect Trump, and that's why for 35 days this went on and on and on. Right. That's why a bill never got in front of Trump for 35 days. It gives the perception that the Democrats were trying to do something, trying to reopen the government, trying to get them to work together, and the Republicans were blocking them. So it's not just Trump's approval rating is down, but the entire GOP, right? Because, people see this shit happening. Who do you think they're going to blame, right? And, the third thing, the real, I think, major reason why this went on so long is because Donald Trump can't negotiate his way out of a paper bag. He's pretty much the world's worst deal maker. All right, and this is stuff that we found during the campaign. 6 of his businesses went out of business, bankruptcy and all that stuff. And it's because he has this zero-sum game worldview, right? He has this worldview where the winner takes everything and the loser gets nothing, right? And if you don't get everything, then you don't win. Okay, so when you have that kind of worldview, you can't meet people halfway. Well, negotiating is all about compromise, right? And if your entire worldview says that, no compromises no matter what, okay, How are you going to negotiate, right? And the thing is, he's always gotten away with that in the past in his business dealings because he's always had the advantage. That only works, right? That view only works when you have something the other person wants, right? And in the past, he's always had the money, right? So you would see stories, maybe I'll put some links to a few of them. You would see stories during the campaign about how he would hire a contractor and then just not pay him, right? And then the contractor, some guy that worked on his building or whatever, right, would try to sue him, and then Trump just had way more money than this guy, and he'd hire better lawyers and basically countersue and get out of not paying him. And then the one contractor would just be screwed, and there was nothing he could do about it because it would cost more money to legally pursue it than he would get back from Trump that was supposed to pay him. So they would just count it as a loss. And apparently Trump has a very, very bad reputation in New York because of this, because he just kept fucking screwing people when he just felt like not paying them, right? And that's what he's always done in the past. That's how he's always gotten away with it, because he always had the advantage. He always was able to outspend his opponents, right? Well, being the president, politics that's not how it works, okay? You have to compromise. You have to give and take. And, when you try this sort of give me everything, you get nothing approach to negotiating, people tell you to, go piss up a rope. And that's kind of what's happened over the last 2 years. He pulled out of Kyoto, right? Kyoto protocols, because he thought that they would come crawling back to him and renegotiate better terms for the United States or whatever, I guess allowing us to pollute more or something. And, they said nope, and they just went on with their own thing, and the rest of the world is having this green energy revolution without us, right? Same thing happened with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, right? Pulls out of that, goes, I'm not interested in this, and, until I get a better deal, right? Thinking that they're going to come crawling back and with a begging bowl saying, please, United States, please join the Trans-Pacific Partnership, right? In the meantime, Canada and Japan and Australia just went on without us. So forget it, We don't need you people, and now we're out possibly $1.5 trillion in trade over the next decade because of that shit, right? And that's just how he's gone, through this whole thing, throws tariffs at China, thinking that they're gonna immediately fucking capitulate and and China fights back and does targeted tariffs against things like soybeans that specifically hurt Trump's base on purpose, right? Because he's not used to dealing with equals. That's why. He doesn't see the rest of the world and his political opponents or anybody else as an equal, right? And he's never had to do that before. He's never had to actually deal with anyone. He's always just been able to crush them because he had more money. Well, he can't do that this time, right? And that's what he tried to do with, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And they just fucking, it's not going to work. It didn't work because he doesn't have anything they need. Okay. And, this played out really well. There's one story that I saw in the news that I think illustrates this perfectly, right? And it was when they're negotiating and they're in the room, him and Mick Mulvaney, right, which is Trump's new chief of staff, I think. They're in the room and they're negotiating with Chuck and Nancy, right? And then the guy, Mick Mulvaney, says something to the effect of, okay, well, you won't give us the full amount. How about half, right? He's trying to negotiate, right? Meet us in the middle, right? And then Trump turns to Mick Mulvaney and yells at him and says, you just fucked it all up, right? In front of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. That apparently is a true story. I'll put the link to that thing in the little thing here so you can read that. Okay. Now imagine that you're at a business deal. Let's say you're negotiating with a buyer to buy some, stuff off of you or whatever, and they're trying to get a lower price or some shit. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? And imagine that you're in this deal and the other team comes at you with an offer, right? And then, while they're doing their offer, the owner of the other business says to his negotiator, turns to him, starts yelling at him, and says, you fucked it all up, right? What would you think? Okay, would you feel any need at all to give any ground whatsoever. If you just saw that, they're fighting with themselves, all right? They don't know what they're doing. I wouldn't give any fucking ground. In fact, if that happened, I wouldn't deal with those guys at all. I would get somebody else, because the chances of them fucking up their deal and screwing us is very high, because clowns are running the ship over there, right? Well, that's exactly what Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, that's how they judged Trump correctly. You know, they saw that he had his fucking head firmly lodged in his anus and decided, okay, then we're not giving shit and we're just gonna let you hang yourself. And that's exactly what happened, right? And it's like, so why does this matter? Okay, here's the thing. I don't want the stupid ass wall. I'm happy Trump got owned. I'm glad that maybe he'll get a little, humbled a little bit and he'll start fucking listening to people and shit like that. And I'm happy that happened. What scares me about this, right, is because these are the people that are speaking for us. You gotta remember, Trump's in charge of the country now. So he's negotiating with other countries out there in the world. These are the people that are determining the fate of the United States, right? And it's like clowns running the show. That's what it is, man. It's every day that goes by, it just increases the potential for a major disaster with this guy in charge. And this entire shutdown fiasco, I think, illustrates that really well. I mean, what do you think would happen if tomorrow there was a 9/11 type event, right? Let's God forbid that happens. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully the terrorists are just too busy laughing to want to attack us. What do you think would happen? How do you think he'd handle it? Do you think he could handle it? He can't even negotiate with the Speaker of the House to get funding for his pet project. Like, how do you think he's going to handle a major international crisis? Seriously, this is like a very dangerous time for our country, right? Because the fucking idiots are in charge. Anyway, well, I'm glad the shit's over with, and who knows, maybe in 3 weeks we'll just be back to where we are. Who knows? Everyone's insane. Adios, folks.